The rain was falling so hard that night it sounded like the whole sky was breaking apart, and Daniel Ortiz was almost sure his life was doing the same. He stood outside the small grocery store on the corner, counting the bills in his hand for the third time, even though he already knew the total. $18. That was all he had left until his next paycheck, and payday was still 4 long days away. Daniel was a single father, doing everything he could to raise his 8-year-old son Mateo on a janitor's salary. Being a dad had never scared him. What scared him was how thin the line had become between getting by and losing everything. After rent, school supplies, and the electric bill, there was never much left. Most nights he told himself that love was enough, but on nights like this, love didn't fill an empty refrigerator. He went inside the store to buy milk, bread, and a small box of cereal, the cheapest dinner he could manage. As he waited in line, he felt the familiar weight of worry settle on his shoulders. He hated that Mateo had to grow up like this, with a father who counted every dollar and prayed nothing unexpected would ever go wrong. When Daniel stepped back out into the cold night, he noticed a man sitting on the wet sidewalk near the entrance. His clothes were worn, his shoes torn, and his face tired in a way Daniel recognized all too well. The stranger wasn't holding a sign or asking for anything. He was just sitting there, staring at the ground like someone who had run out of hope. Daniel hesitated. He didn't have anything to spare. Not a single extra dollar. But something about the man reminded him of himself, of how close any of us are to falling when life pushes too hard. "Sir, are you okay?" Daniel asked softly. The man looked up, surprised that someone had spoken to him. "I will be," he said, though his voice didn't sound very convinced. Without planning to, without thinking too much about it, Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out the $18. Every bill he had in the world. "This isn't much," Daniel said, pressing the money into the man's hand, "but maybe it'll help you get something warm to eat." The stranger stared at the cash like it was a miracle. "You don't even know me," he whispered. "I don't need to," Daniel replied. "I just know what it feels like to be scared." Walking home in the rain, Daniel wondered if he had just made a terrible mistake. He had given away his last bit of security. But when he opened the door to his small apartment and saw Mateo run up to hug him, he felt strangely at peace. Somehow, they would make it. They always did. The next morning started like any other. Daniel got Mateo ready for school, packed a small lunch from what little was left in the kitchen, and tried not to think about the empty bank account. He was just pouring himself a cup of black coffee when he heard something strange outside. Engines. Not one. Several. Deep, powerful engines that rumbled down the quiet street and stopped right in front of his house. Daniel walked to the window, confused, and his heart nearly stopped. 5 black SUVs were parked along the curb. His first thought was panic. Had he done something wrong? Was there some kind of mistake? He was just an ordinary man with an ordinary life. Nothing like this had ever happened to him. A tall man in a suit stepped out of the first vehicle and approached the front door. Mateo peeked out from behind his father, eyes wide. "Dad, are we in trouble?" he whispered. "I don't know," Daniel admitted. The knock on the door sounded firm and official. Daniel took a deep breath and opened it. "Mr. Daniel Ortiz?" the man asked. "Yes, that's me." "My name is Jonathan Reed," the man said, offering a hand to shake. "I believe you met my father last night." Daniel frowned. "Your father?" "The man outside the grocery store," Jonathan explained. "You gave him $18. Daniel felt his face grow warm. "It wasn't a big deal. I was just trying to help." Jonathan smiled in a way that suggested it had been a very big deal. "Mr. Ortiz, my father is Thomas Reed. He's the founder of Reed Industries." Daniel blinked. The name was familiar. Everyone in the city knew Reed Industries. It was one of the largest companies in the state. I don't understand, Daniel said slowly. My father sometimes goes out on his own without security, Jonathan continued. He believes it keeps him grounded. Last night, he wanted to see how people really treat someone who has nothing. Out of dozens who passed him by, you were the only one who stopped. And not only did you stop, you gave him everything you had. Daniel felt dizzy. I didn't know who he was. I just thought he needed help. That's exactly the point, Jonathan said. At that moment, another car door opened, and the man from the sidewalk stepped out, clean-shaven now, dressed in a fine coat, looking completely different from the broken figure Daniel had met in the rain. Hello again, Thomas Reed said warmly. I wanted to thank you properly. You don't have to thank me, Daniel replied, embarrassed. Anyone would have done the same. Thomas shook his head. No, they wouldn't. Believe me. He looked around the small apartment, at the simple furniture, at Matteo standing shyly beside his father. My son told me about you, Thomas continued. A single dad, working hard, doing your best. And still, you chose kindness over fear. Daniel didn't know what to say. I built my company from nothing, Thomas said. And I've learned that character matters more than money. You proved last night that you are a man of extraordinary character. He handed Daniel an envelope. Inside was a check so large Daniel's hands began to tremble. This is to help you and your son get a fresh start, Thomas said. No strings attached. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. I can't accept this. Yes, you can, Thomas replied gently. And there's more. If you're interested, I'd like to offer you a position at my company. A real career, not just a job. Matteo looked up at his father. Dad, does this mean things are going to be okay? Daniel knelt down and hugged his son tightly. Yeah, buddy. I think it does. In the weeks that followed, Daniel's life changed in ways he had never imagined. He started working at Reed Industries, moved into a better home, and for the first time, he didn't lie awake at night afraid of the future. But the biggest change wasn't the money or the job. It was the reminder that kindness still mattered in a world that often forgot it. Whenever people asked Daniel how he turned his life around, he always told them the same thing. I didn't. I just helped a stranger on a rainy night. And every time he said it, he hoped others would understand the real lesson of his story, that you never know how powerful one small act of compassion can be. Because sometimes, $18 can change everything.